Well, thank you. We are going to go ahead and start this joint hearing, and I want to first begin by welcoming everyone. My name is Robert Garcia, and I'm the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, and I especially want to thank Senator Blumenthal for his incredible leadership. This is our second joint hearing between our two committees in both, of course, the Senate and the House. And today, of course, we're going to be examining the use of violence in immigration enforcement. And so this is a very important moment for us as a committee, and of course, an important moment for us to understand what is happening across this country. And so we are, of course, excited to be here and understand how important it is for everyone to really understand what's going on at this moment. We're also going to be hearing from a variety of witnesses as well, and we're very grateful to everyone for being here. I want to also just mention that we're going to have members of the Senate as well as members of the House that are be coming in and out to ask questions. And so I want to welcome, of course, our members of the House Oversight Committee. And then, of course, we're going to be having members of the U.S. Senate here as well. I'm going to begin with some opening comments. Then I'm going to turn it over to Senator Blumenthal, who's also going to be introducing two of our first witnesses that are here. We'll be hearing from them in just a minute. Welcome to both of you, of course. And then we'll be going on to questions after the two sets of opening statements. And so we'll go ahead and begin. I want to just note that we're here because the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and of course, broader agencies across DHS are completely out of control. And because Congress has a responsibility to step in when constitutional rights are being violated. Now, in December, of course, Senator Blumenthal and I convened a hearing to call out the unlawful arrests of U.S. citizens detained by ICE and CBP. And since that time, the violence and the lawlessness has actually escalated. So we're going to continue to hold hearings, and we're going to continue to push back. I want to begin by just showing this chart right here. Now, back in July, Donald Trump and Republicans passed a law that cut hundreds of billions of dollars from health care and food assistance. And they used that money to hire thousands of ICE agents who are now terrorizing cities and killing United States citizens. Now, this chart shows how they made ICE the highest funded law enforcement agency in the history of the United States. 10 years ago, the ICE budget was less than $6 billion. Last year, it was over $85 billion. And if you look at funding for the agency and look at what just happened in the last year, it is stunning to see how much we are spending across this country to terrorize, disfigure, in some cases kill U.S. citizens and people across this country. Now, Oversight Democrats have tracked, reviewed, and vetted over 470 incidents on our immigration enforcement dashboard, and 186 of them include problematic uses of force by agents. Now, these are not isolated mistakes. They are a clear pattern. And we know that's a tip of the iceberg. We're seeing ICE, CBP, other parts of DHS, all across our country terrorize communities. We've seen warrantless searches of homes and vehicles. We've seen folks arrested, detained with no criminal history. We've seen folks be sent to detention centers only to be released with no explanation as to why. Now, American citizens and innocent people have been brutalized, and our witnesses today will testify to that. And to be clear, we've seen people dragged from cars, beaten, gassed, attacked with crowd control weapons, blinded, like back in my home state of California, left with broken ribs, run off the road, beaten, injured, disfigured, and shot. Officers have been ordered to enter homes without warrants in violation of the Constitution. And we've also seen the federal government labeling American citizens as domestic terrorists, calling people, quote, assassins, and falsely claiming they intended to kill law enforcement, which we know, of course, has been untrue. We're seeing the results of policies set by powerful people of no respect for the Constitution, no respect for the law, no respect for basic humility. And these folks here, which we know well, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, of course, Tom Homan and Greg Bovino, These people, every single one of them, has to be held accountable for the crimes, for the terror, and for the murders that are happening to our own people in this country. We're taking action today because the stakes could not be higher. Now, this morning, Oversight Democrats released our initial investigation into the killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretti. Now, Alex, of course, was a VA nurse who was peacefully exercising his First and Second Amendment constitutional rights before he was pepper sprayed, tackled, disarmed, and then shot repeatedly in the back. Now, Renee Good was a mom who told an officer, which we all have seen on video, "I'm not mad at you." She said, "I'm not mad at you," before she was shot dead. We mourn both of these two Americans today, and we find that these shootings cannot be justified. We also know they were part of a broader pattern of escalating unlawful violence by the Trump administration and DHS to intimidate dissent. Now, this administration then lied about the events and is now obstructing independent investigations to cover up misconduct and deny accountability to the victims and to the public. Our hearing today will build on evidence, not just that we put out in our reports, in our investigation, but the incredible work being done by the Senate, its various committees. And again, I especially want to thank Senator Blumenthal for his leadership of holding these hearings. The stories that we're going to hear today are hard to tell and they're hard to hear. So I want to thank again our witnesses for the courage and the strength that it takes to be here today. This is a step towards accountability, and we know that the courage, that the strength that you all have that are bringing is in light of what you're hearing from the administration. I think it's important for the public to recognize that this administration has lied, has defamed, and has smeared people that have been peacefully protesting. They've weaponized the Department of Justice to silence protesters, observers, and, of course, journalists. But I also remind folks that Donald Trump won't be president forever. Kristi Noem won't be the secretary forever. And when you serve this country in an elected office or in uniform, you swear an oath to the Constitution. You pledge to work for all Americans. You don't get a license to kill, and there's no absolute immunity. We're going to stand up for the rights of our communities, and we believe strongly that we need to hear the stories of those that are in front of us today. I want to thank our witnesses for the courage, and I want to yield back to our host today, and really the person that's been organizing and leading all of these hearings, Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you so much, Representative Garcia. Working with you has been a great experience in partnership, and I am really gratified that we're going to continue our work, continue our investigation, continue our efforts to hold DHS accountable. This hearing is extraordinary and unprecedented, but so is the inhumanity and brutality that we've seen from a government agency. With us today are brave Americans who have come forward to speak truth to power. That phrase is overused, but truly it applies today. With us in spirit are also Renee Good and Alex Pretti, in spirit. They should be here in person, but they were murdered. They were murdered by their own government. They were killed in cold blood. And I can only imagine how painful it must be for you to see that image of your sister, which speaks to your courage, your guts, your grit and determination to be here. And you have won the admiration and gratitude of all of the colleagues here and many others and Americans throughout the country. The witnesses here bear the scars of government lawlessness and DHS brutality, mental scars as well as physical scars. They're here as the face and voice of Alex and Renee and of thousands of others who span the country and who have experienced this inhumanity. And let's be very clear. These stories are not just about Minneapolis. People here from all over the country. These stories span the country. The nation is Minneapolis. We are all Minneapolis. And these stories are a call to action. I was in this room just a few hours ago at a hearing of the Armed Services Committee. I sat on this dais as we heard from witnesses about our national nuclear security in the face of threats from enemies and adversaries abroad who have nuclear weapons. We are here about a matter of national security that is equally important to the one that we heard about this morning. The violence unleashed by the Trump administration against our fellow citizen can touch any American at any time, any one of you who are listening by live stream or C-SPAN, or who are hearing and seeing this hearing. Whether you're going to a church clothing drive, to make a donation on your way to a doctor's appointment, or even heading home from dropping your 6-year-old son off at school. Real stories we will hear today. These stories, and far too many others, demand that every one of us stand up against the injustices and demand accountability. The directives underlying this lawlessness come from the top. Those pictures of the leaders that Representative Garcia showed you are ultimately the culprits here. They bear responsibility. They are the ones who issued the quotas for arrests and detention that are driving the brutality. They are the ones who have issued a policy directive, kept secret until a whistleblower came to me, showing that the acting director of ICE is authorizing agents to break down your door, ransack your home, terrify your children, detain and arrest you, as has happened countless times across the country. The top ranks of DHS are more than complicit. They are the driving force behind this brutality, and they should be held accountable. They've not only directed those actions, but also the lies and misinformation that have been presented to courts in violation of the duties lawyers have to present only the truth to courts. And they have engaged in character assassination against today's witnesses, as well as countless others, including Alex and Renee. We are at a defining moment. It's a moral moment. We are determined to continue to investigate and uncover wrongdoing, but we'll also seek action for accountability and justice. My feeling is that we should demand a complete overhaul, a rebuilding of DHS and the agencies that fall here. These reforms should include body cameras and identification on every officer, masks off at all times, rigorous use of force training and policies, independent investigations into acts of violence, and ongoing monitoring of these agents, a police force that has these kinds of systematic failings would be supervised by a monitor. And we've seen it in Connecticut, as my colleagues have seen it in their states around the country. And most important for me, rights of citizens to seek redress, rights of anyone to have recourse in the courts to make sure that agents violating their rights are held accountable. If you go to your local police chief and ask, what are the norms? Every one of the demands that I've listed here is going to be recounted to you, including a right of action on the part of people to seek accountability. It can be done with 4 words, 4 words in the current United States Code, 1983. All we need to do is add, when we say every person, under color of any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of the United States, or any other state or territory. That basic responsibility ought to be the right of every citizen, because we know that rights without remedies are empty promises. If a local cop can be sued, so should an ICE agent or a CPB official. And so should Greg Bovino and Kristi Noem and Todd Lyons and Steve Miller, and yes, Donald Trump. There is a real need for a full accounting of what these agencies have done. Someday we should have a Truth and Justice Commission to investigate the systematic failings. But for right now, I can promise that I will not support another dime for the Department of Homeland Security unless there is this fundamental, far-reaching reform and restraint, in effect, a rebuilding of the agency. So Renee and Alex are not with us, but the silencing of their voices should strengthen our resolve to force change, to stand up for what's right, to show our neighbors, our communities, and the world that we won't let totalitarian tyranny prevail and fear crumble this great nation. One day, I think we will look back and hold ourselves accountable, whether we stood up and took stands. Luke Granger and Brett Granger are showing that courage and strength today. And they're here to share some words about their sister. Luke and Brent, on behalf of all of us, I want to express again our gratitude, and we offer our condolences. Words are inadequate, but just know from our hearts, we are with you in spirit for this devastating loss, and we thank you for being here today. And I recognize you now for your remarks.
Thank you, Ranking Member Blumenthal and Ranking Member Garcia, and distinguished members of Congress. My name is Luke Ganger, and I'm here with my brother Brent. Renee Good is our sister. We're here on behalf of Nae's big family and those who loved her. We're here to ask for your help. I was talking to my 4-year-old last week when she noticed I was not doing well. I had to come here today and talk to some important people. She knows that her aunt died and that somebody caused it to happen. She told me that there are no bad people and that everyone makes mistakes. She has Nae's spirit. The deep distress our family feels because of Nae's loss is in such a violent and unnecessary way is complicated by feelings of disbelief, distress, and desperation for change. In the last few weeks, our family took some consolation, thinking that perhaps Nae's death would bring about change in our country, and it has not. The completely surreal scenes taking place on the streets of Minneapolis are beyond explanation. This is not just a bad day or a rough week or isolated incidents. These encounters with federal agents are changing the community and changing many lives, including ours, forever. And I still don't know how to explain to my 4-year-old what these agents are doing when we pass by. Our family is deeply grateful for the outpouring of love and support from the community in Minneapolis and from people across the country and around the world. The prayers and words of support have truly brought us comfort, and it is meaningful that these sentiments have come from people of all colors, faiths, and ideals. That is a perfect reflection of Renee, who carried peace, patience, and love for others wherever she went. Our family is a very American blend. We vote differently, and we rarely completely agree on the finer details of what it means to be a citizen of this country. We attend various churches and some not at all. And despite those differences, we have always treated each other with love and respect. And we've gotten even closer during this very divided time in our country. And we hope that our family can be even a small example to others, not to let political ideals divide us, to be good like Renee. But the most important thing we can do today is to help this panel and our country understand who Renee is and what a beautiful American we have lost. A sister, a daughter, mother, a partner, and a friend.
Good afternoon. My name is Brent Ganger, and I'd like to share some thoughts from the eulogy that I gave on my sister's behalf this past Saturday. When I think of Renee, I think of dandelions and sunlight. Dandelions don't ask permission to grow. They push through cracks in the sidewalk, through hard soil, through places where you don't expect beauty, and suddenly there they are, bright, alive. Unapologetically hopeful. That was Renee. And sunlight, warm, steady, life-giving, because when she walked in a room, things felt lighter, even on cloudy days. Renee had a way of showing up in the world that made you believe things were going to be okay. Not because she ignored the hardship, but because she chose optimism anyway. She chose to look for what was good, what was possible, and what was worth loving. Nene loved fiercely, openly, and without hesitation. As a mother, Renee poured herself into love. The kind of love that shows up every day, that sacrifices quietly, that cheers loudly, that believes deeply. Her children were and are her heart. Walking around outside her body. And she made sure they felt safe, valued, and endlessly loved. As a sister, she was constant. Someone you could lean on, laugh with, or just sit in silence beside. She had a way of making you feel understood, even when you didn't have the words yet. She didn't just listen, she saw you. She believed in second chances. She believed tomorrow could be better than today. She believed that kindness mattered, and she lived that belief. Even when things were hard, Renee looked for the light. And if she couldn't find it, she became the light for somebody else. It was the excessively ordinary things that made Renee so beautiful. There are billions of people who now know her name, and it would be so easy to fall into the false belief that great heroic things are required to overcome difficult things in the world. But as Tolkien wrote, it is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay, small acts of kindness and love. That's why the image of dandelions feels so right. People try to pull them up, overlook them, dismiss them, but they keep coming back, stronger, brighter, spreading seeds of hope everywhere they land. Renee planted those seeds in all of us. In her children, in her family, in friends, coworkers, and people who maybe didn't even realize they needed her light at the time. And sunlight. Sunlight doesn't ask for recognition. It just gives. It warms, it nurtures, it helps things grow. Renee did that for us. She helped us grow. She helped us believe in ourselves. She helped us see the good, even when life felt heavy. Renee is not gone from us. She's in the light that finds us on hard days. She's in the resilience we didn't know we had until we needed it. She's in the laughter, the memories, the love that continues to grow. Like dandelions, like sunlight, and like Renee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent and Luke, for that really powerful appeal to the nation's conscience. And I hope to our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and I hope that all of our colleagues will join in seeking the action that you just described that is so important, not just as a tribute to your sister, but as a way to prevent the kind of lawless brutality that caused her death, literally murder. So thank you for being here today. We are going to now have the second panel come forward and excuse the first. We're ready to begin the second panel. I want to welcome all five of you and reiterate our thanks to every one of you for being here. Everything that I said about Brent and Luke could apply to every one of you. Your courage and your strength enable us to move forward, to seek action, to appeal to the conscience of our country. We're fortunate to be joined today by Antonio Ramanucci. Mr. Ramanucci is an attorney representing the family of Renee Nicole Good. He has extensive experience representing victims of policy violence, including the family of George Floyd. Marie Martinez is an American citizen, resident of Chicago. She is here to share her experience of being shot 5 times by Customs and Border Protection agents in Chicago this past October. Alia Rahman is an American citizen and resident of Minneapolis. She is here to share her story of being violently stopped and detained by immigration agents while on her way to a doctor's appointment just 3 weeks ago. Martin Daniel Rascon, known as Daniel, I believe. He is an American citizen and resident of San Bernardino, California. Mr. Rascon is here to share his story of being shot at, by an immigration agent while traveling in a vehicle with family members last year. Finally, on our panel, Seth Stoughton. He is a former police officer and professor at the University of South Carolina School of Law, where he is faculty director of Excellence in Policing and Public Safety. He is here to share his expertise about the proper methods of policing, including when and where it is appropriate for police to use force. Mr. Ramanucci, we'll begin with your testimony.
Ranking Member Blumenthal, Ranking Member Garcia, and distinguished members of Congress. My name is Antonio Ramanucci, and I am a civil rights and tort litigation attorney with the deep honor of representing the Renee Good family for her tragic shooting death by federal agents in Minneapolis. I have handled excessive force cases across the country for decades. My colleagues and I are deeply distressed at these invasions onto a fellow American's civil rights by our own government that have gone well beyond the initial scope of removing criminals. The occupation by ICE and CBP in our cities is way beyond their mission, leading to unnecessary provocation that causes needless harm and death. These operations in multiple states have routinely and consistently included violations of the Constitution. We call for an immediate end of false narratives by federal officials about the victims of excessive force. The character assassinations and conclusions before an investigation has been started, let alone completed, must stop. In America, our leaders must be held to a standard of truth and responsible speech. There is no such thing as absolute immunity, and that perception leads to agents who behave with absolute impunity, leading to exaggerated and violent, provoked encounters with people. This is an unprecedented and deeply unsettling time, and the roadmap to navigating this national crisis lies within this august body. My job today will be to share information about the process to hold federal officers accountable for actions we believe are violations of constitutional rights in the face of other investigative bodies failing to do so. In Renee Good's civil case, our team has promised to provide transparency about what happened to her as we continue our independent investigation in an aggressive way, but also in a moral and ethical manner. We want to be the voice of reason for the country that wants to understand and deserves the facts. For example, we wrote and shared a letter to relevant federal agencies asking for responsible handling and preservation of evidence, such as Renee's vehicle, records of the agent's declared injuries, his cell phone, and any statements he made about the use of force and protesters. At the family's request, we conducted an independent autopsy of Renee's body so we could better understand her injuries and her experience in those final moments. and we release some of those high-level results, again, to provide transparency and truth to Americans. And lastly, we are providing information to the public on reasonable policing policies and practices so people can view the video of Renee's death through that lens. The lens is a wide-angle one where the totality of circumstances must be viewed and not just one frame. The United States legal system allows for individuals to pursue civil justice with the suit against a city, county, or state for the conduct of its officers and against the officers individually. These types of legal claims are made under what is called 42 U.S. Code Section 1983. This was part of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1871 and is essential for accountability when an officer behaves unconstitutionally. Keep in mind that this act is 155 years old and desperately needs an amendment. However, similar legal action against federal law enforcement officers like ICE or Border Patrol is not currently allowed under Section 1983. There is a current possible path of civil recovery through the Federal Tort Claims Act, or FTCA, but this is challenging. It requires first the filing of a claim with the government agency that has harmed you, and then waiting up to 6 months for a reply. Our current paradox is that America should not require the permission of the federal government to sue the federal government for cases like Renee Good or Alex Pretti. If the government must give you permission to seek accountability for violation of constitutional rights, then your rights are just words on paper. There is a legislative remedy to this paradox. At the state level, Minnesota and other states can pass bills making it a state law to violate constitutional rights. In Illinois, we did this by signing House Bill 1312. Congress can remove this roadblock to federal accountability by amending Section 1983 and adding 4 words, as you, Senator Blumenthal, pointed out, so federal officers can be sued civilly if their conduct merits it. The current language spells out that state, county, and municipal law enforcement can be sued, and Congress would only need to add the words "or the United States" to the list of governments whose officers could be brought to civil justice. It's that simple. I'm urging you to consider this amendment and fix a 155-year-old problem. The current path to hold federal officers accountable is narrow and an uphill climb, and that will not deter us in the Renee Good case. Please, let's not repeat a very recent moment in history when we said never again, and having Congress miss the opportunity to pass harm-stopping legislation seeking accountability when the law requires. I thank you. I thank this esteemed panel for your commitment to the truth, American values, and of course, our Constitution.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Before I begin, I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to be here today, for taking the time to hear my testimony. I give thanks to God. He has been a constant presence in my life and the source of my strength. Without him, I wouldn't be here standing. I am a living testimony of his grace. Sincerely, thank you, everyone who has kept me in their thoughts and prayers and who has supported me since day one. From the parents at my school to my neighbors, to my family and friends, strangers near and far, from Mexico to Colombia, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Esto es para toda mi gente inmigrante. My name is Marimar Martinez. I am a first-generation Mexican-American. As a survivor of this administration actions, as an advocate for those who do not have a voice, those that are pleading for justice, living in fear, and those who are asking for meaningful change and accountability. I come from a beautiful family full of immigrants. I am proud of my roots. I am born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, where I learned the values of resilience, community, respect, love, and hope. Those lessons have shaped me since childhood and continue to guide me through my adult life. On October 4, 2025, those values were tested when my life was nearly taken by my own government. This testimony is my attempt to give voice to an experience that words struggle to hold, but silence cannot justify. On Saturday, October 4, 2025, I woke up tired but committed to doing the fall cleaning I promised myself I would do that day. After 2 hours, I had successfully filled an entire bag of good quality clothes and shoes I wanted to take to donate to my local church. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, I put the bag of clothes in the back of my car and headed towards the church. As I was getting close to the church, I noticed a SUV that appeared to be similar to the Border Patrol vehicles that had been invading our Hispanic neighborhood. In the previous week, I got a quiet but firm sense that something wasn't right. As I passed the vehicle, I noticed an overlight in the front windshield, no front plates as required in Illinois, and an out-of-state license plate in the back. I then noticed a uniformed Border Patrol agent in the vehicle. As a 30-year-old USA citizen with no criminal history, I believed that I had nothing to worry about, but I was concerned for my friends, neighbors, based on the well-publicized incidents involving Border Patrol agents in our community over the past few weeks, arresting anyone with brown skin for no legitimate law enforcement reasons. For the next 15 to 20 minutes, I followed these Border Patrol agents through my neighborhood, honking my horn, shouting out "La Migra," to warn my neighbors about the presence of these agents who have been terrorizing our community over the past few weeks. As I did this, my neighbors standing on the porches and sidewalks joined in on this spontaneous life alert system and began setting off their car alarms to warn other neighbors. As the Border Patrol vehicle turned on Kedzie Avenue, I continued to beat my horn and warn my community. As we approached the intersection of 39th and Kedzie, my vehicle was 2 to 3 feet to the left of the Border Patrol vehicle. He started to swerve into my lane as he was driving. I made eye contact with the driver of the Border Patrol vehicle and watched as he turned the steering wheel once again to his left and sideswept my vehicle. I immediately froze, slammed on the brakes, and stopped my car. The Border Patrol vehicle stopped just 1 to 2 car lengths ahead of me. It seemed like time stopped. I knew from watching the news coverage of other Border Patrol encounters in Chicago that I was in danger. I watched the vehicle of Border Patrol agent killing Silverio Villegas Gonzalez just 3 weeks prior. I knew I had to get to safety before I was dragged from my car and likely beaten or killed. I drove forward and went around the Border Patrol agents, who jumped out of his car and pointed his gun at me. I moved to the far left lane, striking the curb on the far left side of Kedzie. The next thing I knew, I felt a burning sensation in my arms, legs, and that I had been shot by pepper balls, which I also seen these agents fire at people in our community. As I continued to drive past the Border Patrol agents, I could hear my back passenger window shatter, and I felt bullets continue to pierce my body. As I attempted to drive to a safe location, I began to feel lightheaded. I looked down and I noticed blood gushing out of my arms and legs, and I realized I'd been shot multiple times. As I became lightheaded, I became worried I would pass out and endanger other drivers on the road. I managed to drive a mile from where the incident happened, and I pulled into a parking lot of a mechanic shop, and I called 911. I told the 911 operator that Border Patrol agents had just shot me and I needed help. I recall some of the workers from the shop sitting me down in a chair as I was waiting for help, but I was losing this battle. I saw my life flash before me and slowly began to think this was the end for me, and before losing consciousness, the next thing I remember is the EMT putting me on a stretcher, taking me to the hospital. At the hospital, I remember seeing multiple agents standing around, watching me be treated for my wounds. My arms, legs, and chest were all wrapped in bandages. I had 7 bullet holes in my body. I remember the agents rushing the nurses to finish up so they could take me with them. I still felt dizzy. I was not able to fully process what had happened to me. After being at the hospital for less than 3 hours, I was discharged from the hospital and took custody of the FBI. As we left the hospital, I was escorted out through the back in a wheelchair. I observed over dozens of Border Patrol agents waiting outside the hospital. One of the agents came up to me with his cell phone and took a photograph of me. It was the same agent who had previously kept coming in and out my room, and I had to repeatedly tell him to leave. I told him I did not consent for him to photograph me, but he did not care. It still haunts me that this agent has my photo on his phone. Was this the agent that shot me? Was this a trophy for him? I was next taken to the FBI building for further processing because they rushed me out of the hospital so quickly the blood started soaking through the bandages. I heard the agents talking about how the jail will not accept me in this current condition. I begged the agents to take me to a different hospital to give me proper medical care. Seeing me stand in a pool of my own blood, they were concerned about my health. One of the kind FBI agents brought a bag of additional bandages and worked quickly to pour more dressings over my bloody bandages. The FBI agents agreed to take me to a different hospital where my wounds were treated again, and I received additional medical care before being released back into law enforcement. Before being released back to law enforcement custody the following day. The agents took me from the second hospital to the federal detention center in downtown Chicago. I had never even had a parking ticket before, and now I was sitting in federal detention center just for being the victim in a minor traffic accident. Things were surreal. The news in the jail that evening had my story and was being called a domestic terrorist. They said I quote-unquote rammed federal agents. I was in shock. If they only knew I was a month away from paying off my truck and I would never intentionally damage my vehicle, much less be crazy enough to hit a law enforcement. On Friday, I was teaching the young children at the Montessori school, and we were singing and dancing and getting ready for spooky season, preparing fall activities to do the following week. And on Saturday, my own government was calling me a domestic terrorist. And I was in federal detention centers with the bullet holes all over my body. I went to court on Monday, and I met my attorney, Christopher Parenti. He told me the government was trying to have me kept in jail until the trial because they claimed I was a danger to the community. I told them I had never been in trouble before and that the government claims were all wrong. I looked around the courtroom and I recognized over dozens moms and dads from the Montessori school, along with my boss and most of my family members who came to support me. I heard my attorney tell the judge that he had received over 50 letters from the moms and dads from the kids, all describing me as caring, loving, empathetic teacher, the exact opposite of a domestic terrorist. I heard the government describe me as being armed, even though I knew my gun was always inside my snap-closed holster at the bottom of my purse, where I always kept it. The prosecutor told the judge there was no allegation that I have took the gun out my purse, but that did not stop DHS from continuing to say I was armed. During this incident, my attorney explained to the judge that I have a valid concealed carry license and that as a young woman living in Chicago, I carry a gun to protect me from danger. Thankfully, the judge quickly denied the government's detention request and released me on bond that day. Over the next 6 weeks, everything was surreal. I continued to work and teach my children, but knowing that I was under federal indictment and facing felony charges and potentially years in federal prison over a minor car accident where the other driver was at fault and attempted to kill me was terrifying. There was times where I did not believe this was all real, and then I would touch my bullet wounds and knew it was certainly real. Imagine waking up every morning, reliving this trauma. I would go to work each day to take care of my children. I knew my attorney was hard at work and exposing the lies of eyes. I knew the truth of what happened. The agent swerved into me. The agent shot me as I drove away from him. My attorney and his investigators found videos, evidence demonstrating the agents were lying. And I knew that no press release or tweet could ever trump the power of the truth. 2 weeks before the government dismissed all the charges in my case, I sat in federal court and watched from 20 feet away as the Border Patrol agent who attempted to kill me testified at a hearing. Agent Charles Exum. Charles Exum, my attempted executioner, was Charles Exum. I hope the government does not consider my use of his name here to be considered doxing. But I think it is important now that the truth is out of this case is exposed, that people know his name, Charles Exum. Exum was in the courtroom testifying, attempting to weave a coherent story explaining why he took his vehicle that I allegedly rammed out of the secure FBI evidence garage and drove it back to Maine, where the Border Patrol on-site mechanic was ordered to buff out the damages of the vehicle. This was all done prior to me or my attorney having the ability to examine the vehicle. Because he did this, no expert witness will ever be able to prove that it was Exum who swerved into my vehicle. Watching Charles Exum testify made me sick to my stomach. I grew up revering law enforcement. Prior to this incident, I had great respect for local and federal law enforcement. I knew every day they put their lives on the lines to keep me safe, to keep the kids at my school safe. And I thought to keep everyone in our community safe. But seeing what ICE was doing in our community at this time changed my view of law enforcement. This administration has misled the American people by claiming it will focus on the quote-unquote worst of the worst, while their actions show otherwise. Evidence from these operations, including statements made under oath, reveals a pattern of misleading the public. The government told the people they were targeting the worst of the worst, but their actions demonstrated otherwise. They are not targeting the worst of the worst. They are targeting individuals who fit a certain profile, who simply have a certain accent, a non-white skin color, just like me. This raises serious concerns about fairness, discrimination, and abuse of authority. The lack of accountability for these actions is deeply troubling. We, the people, are tired of this misconduct and demand transparency and accountability. Seeing Charles Exum sit in federal courtroom and lie about what happened that day completely eroded all my trust in law enforcement. I know just because Exum is not telling the truth that I cannot hold that against all other law enforcement. But to be honest, I don't know if I will ever view law enforcement the same way again. As my attorney showed the court the disgusting text messages Exum sent to his fellow Border Patrol buddies, literally bragging about how many times he shot me, I got sick to my stomach, seeing how a federal law enforcement officer would talk this way about shooting me, a woman who he swore into, was both eye-opening and heartbreaking. Thankfully, I survived Exum's attempted murder of me and was able to shine a light on his lies. But what about all the others who either did not survive or were not fortunate enough to have videos proving the agent's lies? I know deep down this was God's purpose in having me survive Exum 5 bullets. It was for this moment to happen so that the world could see these text messages, which were a window into the soul of the USA Border Patrol at this critical time in our country's history. 14 days after Exum was confronted with his own disgusting text messages, my attorney called me with the wonderful news that the government was dismissing all my charges against me. We showed up in court later that day, and some of the same parents from the Montessori school who came to support me at my arraignment were there again, this time with tears in their eyes as they heard Judge Alex tell me I was free to go and the charges were dismissed with prejudice. I have learned that surviving the physical wound was only the beginning of this long and painful journey. The real battle started after. In the weeks that followed, I thought I would feel great, but still struggle. I struggle with the memories of the day, the initial swerving into me by Agent Exum, the shots ringing out, and the burning sensation as the bullets ripped through my skin and body. The images of the puddles of blood dripping from my dressings, listening to FBI agents arguing about whether the jail will accept me in this condition. Later in federal prison, staring out through a small window looking out into Clark Street. As I struggle every day with the physical pain and the suffering. I cannot close my hand yet to hold the pen. I try to play with the children at my school, and I am in significant pain as I attempt to do things I was easily able to do before October 4. I attend weekly physical therapy sessions to work on these issues and hope one day I can move in the same way I was able to move prior to October 4. I know that what happened to me in the matter of seconds on October 4 will unfortunately be with me for a lifetime. The physical scars will always be there in the mornings and evenings when I get dressed and I stare at my body, now permanently disfigured by the 5 lead bullets Exum fired into me. They will be there this summer when I head to the beach with my dogs and family. They will be there when I get down on the floor with my students and work with them on their motor skills. And perhaps even worse, the mental scars will always be there as a reminder of the time my own government attempted to execute me, and when they fell, they chose to vilify me. I am Renee Good. I am Alex Pretti. I am Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. I am Keith Porter. They should all be here today. I know each of them would trade my bullet wounds and lifetime of mental distress and a heartbeat to be able to be back with their loved ones this afternoon. And we must also remember the countless other souls who lost their lives at the hands of these entrusted with authority. I know that by being a survivor, it is my duty to be here today to let you elected officials know what is happening on the streets of our country, because silence is no longer an option. This needs to stop now. Why do we continue to wait for more public executions when we have already seen the evidence in our TVs and computer screens? We have heard the testimonies. We have watched the pain unfold in real time. How many more lives must be lost before meaningful action is taken? The United States is and will always be a country of immigrants, built by immigrants. We are a country of love and tolerance. This is the land of the free, the land of the opportunity, and the great nation that people around the world aspire to call home. And prior to this recent war on immigrants, we were a country where law enforcement acted lawfully and appropriately, with respect of all human life. I am happy to see people of different nationalities speak up. This the spirit of love, unity, and courage. This will make America great. I am asking you today, pleading with you, to please help bring back the America I grew up loving and idolizing. In America that values human dignity, protects life, and lives up to the ideals our founding fathers proudly proclaimed. If there's no justice for the people, let there be no peace for the government. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez, Ms. Rahman. And I'm going to suggest to the witnesses that we stay to 5 minutes because we're running a little bit behind. Thank you.
Thank you, members, for taking time to be here today, and thank you, staff, for making this happen. My name is Aliya Rahman, and I am a resident of South Minneapolis. I'm a Bangladeshi American, born in northern Wisconsin, and I'm a disabled person with autism and a traumatic brain injury. Not all autistic brains do this, but mine fixates on sounds, numbers, and patterns. And while what the world saw happen to me exactly 3 weeks ago today on video was a terrible violation, it is still nothing compared to the horrific practices I saw inside the Whipple Center. So I am here today with a duty to the people who have not had the privilege of coming home, and I offer this data because these practices must end now. On January 13th, on the way to my 39th appointment at Hennepin County's Traumatic Brain Injury Center, I encountered a traffic jam caused by ICE vehicles and no signs indicating how to get around it. I had not wanted to pull into a blocked, chaotic intersection, but verbally agreed to do so and rolled down my window after an agent yelled, "Move! I will break your effing window!" His first instruction. Agents on all sides of my vehicle yelled conflicting threats and instructions that I could not process while watching for pedestrians. Then the glass of the passenger side window flew across my face. I yelled, "I'm disabled," at the hands grabbing at me, and an agent said, "Too late." I felt immersed in a pattern, and I thought of Genoa Donald, an autistic black man killed by police during a traffic stop in 2021. I remembered Mr. Silverio Gonzalez, who was killed by ICE in his vehicle last year. An agent pulled a large combat knife in front of my face, which I thought was for cutting me, and later learned was used to cut off my seatbelt. Shooting pain went through my head, neck, and wrists when I hit the ground face first and people leaned on my back. I felt the pattern, and I thought of Mr. George Floyd, who was killed 4 blocks away. I was carried face down through the street by my cuffed arms and legs while yelling that I had a brain injury and was disabled. I now cannot lift my arms normally. I was never asked for ID, never told I was under arrest, never read my rights, and never charged with a crime. Approaching the Whipple Center, I saw black and brown bodies shackled together, chained together, being marched by yelling agents outdoors. I continue to hear the word bodies because that is how agents refer to us. We're bringing in a body. They're bringing in bodies, 7, 8 at a time. Where do I put them? We can't use that room. There's already a body in there. You have no reason to believe you will make it out alive if you are already being called a body. Agents repeatedly had to stop and ask how to do tasks. I received no medical screening, phone call, or access to a lawyer. I was denied a communication navigator when my speech began to slur. Agents laughed as I tried to immobilize my own neck. I asked for my cane and was told no, pulled up my arms and prodded forward in leg irons by agents laughing and saying, "Walk, you can do it, walk." Agents did not know if the facility had a wheelchair. When I was finally placed in one to be taken to interrogation, an agent taunted, "You were driving, right? So your legs do work." I pleaded for emergency medical care for over an hour after my vision had become blurry, my heart rate went through the roof, and the pain in my neck and head became unbearable. It was denied. When I became unable to speak, my cellmate pleaded for me. The last sounds I remember before I blacked out on the cell floor were my cellmate banging on the door, pleading for a medic, and a voice outside saying, "We don't want to step on ICE's toes." When I opened my eyes at Hennepin County's emergency room, I learned I was brought there to be treated for assault. The impacts of DHS detention on my physical, mental, and financial well-being and safety have been very severe, but I do not deserve more humane treatment than anyone else, U.S. citizen or not. And I am here today with a strong spirit and a duty to the many people who haven't had the privilege to tell their stories or see their loved ones come home. I am extremely distressed by the pattern that violence from law enforcement has been happening to Black and Indigenous communities for centuries, and to DHS survivors for over 20 years. We call ourselves a civilized nation, but we lack rules and accountability around what a person claiming to be law enforcement is permitted to do to another human being. I am not afraid, and I'm not afraid to keep working on this problem even after ICE is gone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rahman. Mr. Rascon.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for allowing our story to be heard. I am Daniel Rascon, a 23-year-old U.S. citizen from SoCal. I'm the eldest of 3 brothers and father to a nearly 3-week-old baby girl. I operate a forklift for work and currently have my CDLA license and dental assisting certification. I'm no celebrity, but I am loved by many in my community, and there are many that I love and I'm thankful for. The morning of August 16th, 2025 would quickly become unforgettable, especially because my future father-in-law, Francisco Longoria, wanted me to run an errand with him and his son, Jonathan, when all I really wanted to do was just sleep in. We took Jonathan's truck with him sitting in the passenger seat, Francisco driving, and me sitting behind Francisco, when we were just 2 minutes away from home. At 8:49 a.m., 2 unmarked trucks suddenly boxed in our car. I had been looking down at my phone, but when our car abruptly stopped, I looked up thinking we must be at a red light or in a traffic jam. But to my surprise, I was instead met with four men in face masks, sunglasses, and baseball caps, and guns drawn, pointing straight at us, walking towards our car. These 4 men then tried forcing their way into our car by pulling on the handles, pounding on the windows, and yelling at us to roll down the windows, all while failing to answer our repeated requests for their identification and what they wanted. I did not know who these men were. They were refusing to identify themselves, and the only thing I felt I could control was capturing this event by recording it on my cell phone. There were 2 men on either side of the car, and they were not wearing any uniform. I could not tell who these men surrounding our car with guns were. We again asked them to show identification and why they were approaching us with so much aggression. Only seconds after they started pounding on the windows, one of the men broke the driver's side window, punched Francisco in the face, and began reaching into the car. At the same time, a man on the other side of the car broke the passenger window where Jonathan was sitting and began reaching into the vehicle. They shattered the windows, and in that moment, the whole world felt like it was the size of the inside of our pickup. And we were sitting in harm's way with nothing to do but record the horrifying experience. Terrified for our lives, Francisco bravely drove straight through the only open pathway down the street, hoping to be driving towards safety, when we were instead met with gunfire. After we had passed the men, one of the 4 men attempted to murder us after we passed by, as he fired and made contact with the passenger side of our car multiple times. I will never forget the fear and having to quickly duck my head as the shots were fired at the car. Any one of those bullets could have killed me or 2 people that I love. We narrowly escaped as pieces of glass fell on our heads as we drove down the bumpy road. 3 minutes changed our lives forever. The incident began at 8:49 a.m. and we were home by 8:52 a.m. We left home that morning with the truck in good condition, but we returned home with the, I'm sorry, hold on. What was that? We were in, sorry, I lost myself here. Yes. We were home by 8:52 a.m. Left that morning with the truck in good condition, but we returned home with a truck that had 2 shattered windows and bullet holes. We then called 911 to report that 4 men who were hiding their identity assaulted and shot at us. By 9 a.m., a police helicopter was flying over our property. Next thing we know, local officers showed up at our home, handcuffed Francisco, put him in the officer's car, and began individually questioning us. The officers then allowed the same 4 men who had just attacked us to come to our home. Those 4 men were asked to identify who they were looking for, but they had zero idea as to who they were even targeting. Pointing to me as the driver, these masked men had just shot at us, and they were now in our home, treating us as the people who had done something wrong. The man who shot at us went to my future brother-in-law, asked him questions about the video we took of their attack, and lied, saying those were not shots. When the officers left our home almost 3 hours later, we were told that the FBI would continue the investigation. However, almost immediately after the officers left our home, 2 men walked up to our gate and told us to let them in. We could immediately tell this was not the FBI, but instead ICE and HSI agents. The HSI agent then said, "Is he here?" But they never clarified who he was. I said we were told the FBI would be coming and we would be waiting for them to arrive. The HSI agent looked at me and said, "For all intents and purposes, we are the FBI." As time passed, more and more ICE and HSI agents arrived in unmarked vehicles with no license plates. They had gear on and walked around our home with submachine guns, assault rifles, and holstered pistols, making sure to keep their hands on their weapons for fast drawing. The agents blocked every exit